We'll start by creating a new responses.go file under the main package, and the first helper we'll create is respond.json. This will take in the response writer, the status code, the data we want to return as JSON, and headers. Then we'll marshal the data, and if this fails, we'll log the error, set the status to 500, and return early to stop the execution. Now, if marshalling was successful, we continue by looping through the headers and set them as key value pairs. Finally, we'll make sure our content type is always set to application JSON. We'll write the status code and the JSON response. You'll notice that I'm using app as the function receiver. This abstract acts as a dependency container, allowing me to share common dependencies like the configuration and the logger across the entire application. If we go back, you'll see that if marshalling the data fails, we're using that shared logger to log the error message. Another important thing to note is that the write method should always be called last, otherwise it will lock both the status to 200 response code and also the headers. So if you call write before setting the headers and writing the status will always be at 200 and the headers won't be set. So this code won't do anything. Always make sure to call write last. I'll open routes, add a new endpoint, app respond JSON, I'll pass it the response writer, status 200, a map of strings, say name, toolpad, and nil. No custom headers are needed for this one. I'll open the terminal and run make w, which will start library loading with air. I'll open up Thunder client, localhost 8000/1, and here it is, 200 response, name, toolpad. Let's move on with the next helper. We'll do respond forbidden, which will take in just the response writer. We'll have a custom message, and then we'll simply call app respond JSON, pass it the response writer, the appropriate status code, in this case status forbidden. For data, we'll use a map of strings to represent the error message, and then nil for headers. And that's it. The next couple of helpers will be very similar, apart from one or two. Let's do the similar ones first. We'll duplicate respond forbidden. We'll have respond unauthorized with a different message and a different status. Next up, respond not found, different message, different status. Rate limit exceeded, different message, different status. Respond conflict, the same thing. Next up, respond bad request. Here things are a bit different because we'll also take in an error and use it instead of message. We'll also adjust the status. Respond server error is very similar. It will also take in the error, and not only that, since this is a server error, meaning that something really bad happened, we should also add the error to our logs. We'll change the status to internal server error, and then we can move on to our final helper, which will be respond failed validation. This takes in the response writer and errors, which will be a map of slices of strings. This allows us to have multiple validation errors for the same field. In here, we'll have data, which will be a map of any containing the message and the validation errors. Finally, we'll do app respond, pass it the response writer, the status, unprocessable entity, the data, and nil. And we're done. Let's test them out, and then we'll do some refactorings. I'll go in my routes file and add endpoints for each response helper. We'll do app respond forbidden and pass it the response writer, app respond unauthorized, respond not found, rate limit exceeded, respond conflict, respond bad request, and here we'll also need an error, so I'll create one using errors.new, and then we'll continue with respond server error, and finally respond failed validation. Here we'll need a map of slices of strings, let's say name, required, and must be at least 3 characters long. And I think that's it. Let's go to Thunder client. /1 we have a 200, /2 403, /3 401, /4 404, /5 429, /6 409 /7 400 bad request /8 internet server error and /9 422. All good. Now, time for some improvements. This might sound silly, but I don't particularly like the repeating map string error here, as it's prone to mistakes and somewhat hard on the eyes. Let's simplify this with a respond error method. We'll take in the response writer, status code, message, and header, and then we'll simply relay it to app respond JSON. And now we can update all of these to use app respond error and pass the message directly. Another improvement I want to make has to do with what we are logging. Currently, we're only logging the error message, but it would be nice to know the request details and the stack trace leading to the error. To accommodate this, we'll create a new function, log request error, which takes in the request pointer and the error. We'll extract the message from the error, method from request, URL from request, and then we'll get the trace by calling debug stack. And this needs to be converted to a string. We'll group the request related info and then call app logger error, message, request info, and trace. This is now much better because it will give us more insight on where and why the error occurred. Let's go ahead and use it. We'll go to our respond JSON helper, and instead of app logger error, we'll do app log request error, and this needs the request, which we don't have, and the error, which we do have. Let's go ahead and accept the request pointer as the second parameter, and then scroll down and adjust all the other respond functions. Alright, all the respond functions now receive the request pointer as their second parameter. All we need to do is adjust the route calls and we're good to go. Let's quickly test them one more time. /1, /2, /3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and here, if we open the terminal, we can see the detailed log message with the request info, and /9 422 unprocessable entity, and that was it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, share it, subscribe, click the bell button, all that good stuff. Bye!